Listen, I hoard armor as much as the next guy in Destiny 2, but I spent some time in Google Sheets and figured out a better system for me to get rid of a lot of the gear that's in my vault. So I'm going to try and relay that to you guys in the best way possible. The quick and dirty way, of course, is to just use d2armorpicker.com. But that doesn't really help when you're trying to make decisions on the fly. My last video showed you how to focus your Umbral Engrams for easy high stat armor, but here's a quick recap. Pick up the old season artifacts from the War Table and the Crown of Sorrow. You'll see I've got them here, and then you can earn Umbral energy and you can use it to focus high stat armor. I always choose the discipline stat focused on my ghost so that I can get a good stat split on resilience or recovery on the other end. As you guys may or may not know, the top 3 stats here and the bottom 3 are in their own loot pool, so you can't really get more than, I think it's 34 in each, 34 or 35 in each, so keep that in mind when you are focusing for your certain ghost and then focusing on different stats. So once you farm up some good high stat armor, you're going to want to look for specific stat distributions to get triple 100 stats on all your classes. For this example, and for most classes in PvE, you're going to want 100 resilience, 100 discipline, and 100 into the stat that governs your class ability. So for instance, for my Warlock, that is going to be recovery. If you are a PvP player, you still want to keep some high recovery pieces regardless of your class. The process is always going to be the same in order to determine if the high stat armor is good or not. So for the purposes of this video, we're actually going to ignore the positive and negative stat fragments from each subclass. So you can see here, there are some like this one for plus strength, this one for plus resilience. That's obviously going to give us an inflated stat boost. Of course, you can use these to your advantage when you're making those triple 100 builds, but for just determining whether an armor piece is good or not on the fly, we're not going to be using any of that stuff. Same with powerful friends or radiant light. We're not going to worry about that. For the most part, we don't really want strength or mobility unless we're on our hunter, we want mobility. But it also depends on your build. There may be, strength builds that you want to run on Warlock or Titan or something. The last assumption we're going to make is that each armor piece is masterworked and you're using 5 plus 10 stat mods. So we're going to have a stat mod on each piece of armor and all the armor is going to be masterworked. Okay, now that that's out of the way, here's the breakdown. You're going to want to look for armor pieces that have 22 to 23 plus points in your two of your desired stats, and then at least 10 in the third. That's super important because for that third stat, we're going to be putting mods on there to make it 100. Now you could have 10 resilience here and then 10 recovery on this piece, but 20 resil, 20 discipline. It doesn't matter which way it goes, just for the 3 that you're looking for, which could be different 3, obviously, you're going to want a 20, 20, 10. And you actually need to get a few points above 20 so that when you masterwork it, which is these 10s down here, now we have 300 total, including the mods, 300 total right here in this distribution. Every other stat that's not in your top 3 is going to have at least +2 here. So you're going to have at least this 8 plus the masterwork of 10. So your stats that you don't necessarily want are going to have at least 18 to that stat, probably more in some instances, but you're going to want to look for at least 55 of your custom stat on each piece before you masterwork and before you put mods on. If we include the +2s, say we get this as our ideal piece and we get this perfectly for our helmet, that's going to be a total of 61 total stats, 55 into our preferred, and then 2, 4, 6 into our not preferred, which is going to give us 61. So anything that's below a 61 total stat is not going to give you triple 100s unless you use a mod like Powerful Friends, Radiant Light, or a subclass fragment that has a boost to your stats. This stat split is going to be the hardest to find on your exotics because there's no real way to farm specific stat rolls. So the more you can make up for that on your legendary armor, the better. Your exotics you're going to get through Lost Sectors and through Xur. However, I don't think that the Ghost mod actually affects that. So you have to get really lucky on your stat splits here. So the better you can make your legendary armor to make up for it, the better off you're going to be. So if you don't use any outside third-party tools and you want to get triple 100 stats, you're going to want to look for at least 22 or 23 on 2 stats and 10 on another. So when you're looking through on your armor, like for instance here, this would be great for a triple resilience, discipline, strength. However, I don't really use strength that much. And then looking at this second piece here, this is perfect. This is amazing piece for my Warlock. A1, number one, need to masterwork this immediately. It's got 12 resilience, 30 recovery, and 28 discipline. So you can see that that's even better than what I have on right now. This one I've got a little more into strength, which I don't really want. And so this could be a great piece to replace that. Now, if you do use third-party tools, I'm going to show you how you can use DIM to clear out your vault knowing this kind of build philosophy, this armor philosophy. It's helped me so much once I started kind of wrapping my brain around all of this. Basically, what you're going to want to do is go to destiny-itemmanager.com, aka DIM. We all know it, love it, and use it to organize a lot of our stuff. You're going to want to click the gear icon up here, and then we're going to scroll down to this section that says custom total. Make sure you set up these custom stat distributions that you prefer for each class. So for Hunter, I've got mobility, resilience, and discipline. Sometimes I put recovery in there if I'm looking for PvP roles. And then for Titan, we've got resilience, recovery, discipline, and Warlock, resilience, recovery, discipline. Of course, for Hunter, we really need that mobility because dodge kind of governs a lot of stuff about the Hunter. So I do put that in there. And like I said, you could put recovery instead of discipline if you wanted, or however you want to set it up. Set this up first. And then we're going to click over to the organizer tab, and we're going to go into Warlock for this specific example because it's got an easy stat split for our resilience, recovery, and discipline. Now, if your columns are not set up like this, how mine are like this, then you're going to go over here to enabled columns, and any of these that you see highlighted, like filled in, the check marks filled in, that's what you want to put on there. Now make sure, if anything else, you're going to put custom total. You don't really need all this other stuff. That's just what I like to look at. I like to see which loadouts my armor is in as well, but all you really need is this custom total here. So you're just going to click on that checkbox and it's going to put it in here for you. Once you have that going, you're just going to sort by custom total. And then what I like to do is just look at my legendaries. So this exotic, like I don't want to see these exotics here. So I'll actually hover over legendary, hit shift on my keyboard, and then click legendary. That's going to put the is legendary search up here. You can also just put that up there. You don't have to do all the clicking. And then we're going to sort so that the highest is at the top here for our custom total all the way down to the lowest. And you can see that that headpiece that we looked at in game is my number one headpiece now. And I think I got this the other day. I pulled it from the war table. So you can see that this is our max rolled custom total. It's over 55, which is what we want to get triple 100s. We've got an over 55 helmet. So that's perfect. And then you can kind of scroll down and start to get rid of some of the stuff down here. Now, make sure you don't get rid of something if it's max power level. That's why I have it here. You can also say negative is max power if you wanted to take away anything that's your max power so that you're not deleting that by accident. You can put that in there. So now we can see, oh, it actually took away the helmet that we were looking at because that one was 1580 as well. So that's why I took that away. But you can actually mark these, you know, for infusion fuel and stuff like that so that you make sure you don't delete them. You can also lock them, which will lock it in game, which is nice. But we can see what loadouts I'm using these helmets on, but I probably want to masterwork this because it's much better in terms of custom totals. And then I'm probably going to want to get rid of a lot of these down here. And then we can go to the arms. We can see that pretty much all my Warlock builds right here are using these gloves. This is pretty much the same stat distribution as the helmet that we just looked at. So we've got our 29, 19, 12. Now I could get a little bit better on this recovery. I probably need a little bit more recovery on an arm piece in order to get that flat triple 100s across the board. And then we could see for a chest, we're kind of lacking in the chest. So this is how you can determine which armor pieces you want to actually focus for. is by looking at what you have the lowest custom total on. So far we've got chess. So we should probably focus chess. This one I actually just got the other day. It's got high recovery and discipline, but it doesn't have that plus 10 into resilience. So it's not going to be a good candidate for triple stats, but it's a good one for double stats with recovery and discipline. So this could be a pretty good PvP role. It's also a 67 total stat, which is pretty high. And then we go over to our legs, and our legs, our top one is 55, and the one that we use most for most of our loadouts is 54 total custom stats. So we could also bump up, or we could also farm for some legs as well, pop some umbrals on some legs. Also keep in mind what exotics you like to use. So for instance, let's go ahead and clear the legendary tab, and then let's clear this search, and then we're going to look at our chest, because majority of my exotics that I run on Warlock are for my chest. So we can look at like Phoenix Protocol here. I only have 42 custom stats for that. So I need to make up 13 stats somewhere else, or I need to farm for a better Phoenix Protocol. Same thing with Starfire Protocol. That's another one that I have loadouts for, and it only has 36 custom total. So this one's really bad, and I probably should farm for a new one. We can look at like our Luna factions are 46. So like I said, exotics are going to be really hard to farm for and get really nice custom totals for that. I don't have over 55 on any of my exotics for Warlock. So I really should probably refarm for that. You can kind of go through and see all your exotics this way as well. On Titan, I don't have over 55 either. Let's see, for for Hunter, man, for Hunter, I'm really hurting. I'm really hurting. So I probably should farm for some more exotics, but hopefully this shows you how to determine if an armor piece is good or not, because while we do have things like D2 armor picker and dim and stuff, it's hard to know on the fly if your armor piece is worth keeping or not. Obviously super spiky stats you're going to want to keep for sure, but now you have an idea in your head of how to get those triple hundreds. So let's go ahead and pull a couple of these and see what we get. We'll do one chest and one legs before I let you guys go, and we'll see what we've got. All right, so we got 27 discipline, resilience, mobility. That's a delete, even though it's a high discipline. I am going to delete it. And then we got this one, which doesn't have a second stat over 20. So that's another delete. So see how easy that is. And by the way, it is going to take some time to get these high stat rolls. You can also get them from the dungeons and such. You could do master dungeons to get some artifice armor is super helpful as well. Let's pull one more legs and one more chest and see how we do, because those were pretty bad. But you can see why this is what I'm going to be focusing on in the next 6 months before Lightfall, because it does take a while. So now this one, this would actually be pretty decent for a hunter or something, not really for my Warlock. So we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then for the legs, we got 20 discipline again with the mobility. So we're just getting unlucky and getting that mobility instead of getting a resilience or a recovery roll, but we're going to delete that as well. I'm sure the high mobility loving Warlocks are screaming, but that's okay. Even if we did want mobility on our Warlock, we would also want recovery, and neither of those pieces had that. So I hope that gives you an insight into how to set up your triple stats and double stats, and what kind of armor stats to look for when you're farming out there in Destiny 2. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.